So we've got some actual basketball news. The Pacers and Victor Oladipo are having some problems with contract extension talks right now, and NBA teams are watching that whole situation. That's the gist of what we got. And it's interesting because Indiana is in this spot with Oladipo where they would love to keep him, but he's had injury troubles. And if you're going to give a guy a max contract, then you got to be comfortable that he can actually play for you. And I mean, if Oladipo is healthy, then he's certainly a max guy. I mean, if Tobias Harris has a max contract, then Oladipo, based on his 2018 season, certainly deserves one. But that was in 2018. And I mean, the last 2 seasons now, I mean, we'll have to see if we get basketball for late regular season playoff thing, but Oladipo hasn't been the same guy. So it's understandable that Indiana wants to be a little conservative here. But if you're going to play it safe, there's a chance that Oladipo is going to view that as an insult, and I think that already happened with their offer of a 4-year, $80 million extension, which is basically the contract he already has. And so now it becomes interesting. It's like, well, is Indiana just going to take the leap and commit to him? Or are they going to hold on to him and then he doesn't want to stay? When I say hold on to him, I mean they keep him, but they want to see how good he is, but they don't just give him a contract. And then are other teams going to view this whole thing as Oladipo being attainable? There's a lot of different situations this could go in. This could go with Oladipo ending up being traded. This could go with the Pacers just committing to him and hoping for the best. I mean, the doomsday scenario here is basically another John Wall situation. The Pacers give Oladipo a whole bunch of money, and he's just hurt all the time. But he also could be totally healthy. I mean, if we just do some basic number things, I mean, if we look at the 2022 season, which would be the first year in which Oladipo was not under contract, if I worded that weird, Oladipo's max contract would be 30% of the salary cap because he would have played 9 years at that point. And while the salary cap could be different over the next couple of years because of, what we got going on here, but it's supposed to be $125 million in 2022, and 30% of $125 million is 37.5, and then it would go up from there, right? So if you gave Oladipo $37 million in 2022 to go with the rest of the contracts this team has, they'd be locked in place. That would be their team. Oladipo, Brogdon, Turner, TJ Warren, Jeremy Lamb, and Sabonis. That's it. Now that's a good team, and depending on the growth of Sabonis, Turner, and Oladipo, because weirdly enough, I feel like there's still a chance Oladipo has not hit his ceiling. I feel like he was on that path, and then of course the injuries happened. Maybe that team ends up being a title contender if Sabonis becomes one of the 20 best players in the league along with Oladipo, So that's the ceiling of this, and then the floor is, of course, Oladipo not being here or somebody else being traded and then signing Oladipo, because we got to remember the Sabonis-Turner thing is still there, and maybe the Pacers would be comfortable with keeping Oladipo but then wanting to get off of some other money, and maybe the fit between Turner and Sabonis just doesn't prove to be great over the next couple of seasons, or Indiana could be forced to answer these questions kind of right now because, again, it's not like you can just string a player along for months on end and be like, well, we want to see how good you are first. Players and agents don't typically like that. So there's a chance they got to commit to Oladipo quicker than they might like to, and then be faced with the situation of, well, this team's going to get really expensive. Somebody might have to go. And, to me, I guess in a perfect world you could get off of TJ Ward and Jeremy Lamb and replace them with cheap guys, but those guys' contracts are already pretty good, and I feel like their place with this team is a little more of a seamless fit, even if I think Miles Turner is a better player than both of them. So then I think it comes back to, once again, the Turner-Sabonis thing, and if you force me to pick between one of those two guys right now, I'm going to take Sabonis. Turner is a better defender, but I think Sabonis has gotten good enough defensively and things like that. But, there's a bunch of situations this could go in, and It's all going to depend on the Pacers. Do they just want to give Oladipo the extension, the money, and all that right now and just hope for the best a couple years from now when he's 30 and above? Do they want to look to move him now and they think they can get some stuff for him? I don't know. I mean, if we start to think about teams that could trade for Oladipo, I mean, the first team I thought of was the Knicks. I think they would be 100% all in on that. I wouldn't fault them for it. Yeah, you'd be trading for a guy who's had some injury trouble, but they're desperate enough for talent, and they've got some assets. I mean, the players they have, not great. Maybe the Pacers would like somebody out of that mix, but the Knicks do have draft picks, and that can go a long way. They got the Clippers pick. They got the Mavs picks. I imagine they wouldn't want to move their own picks. And funny enough, Orlando, who I mention every single time a scoring guard is available, but with the Magic just want to get Oladipo back, basically. I also love to mention San Antonio when it comes to this type of thing, but that's because I think they can still be good if they just have some players and they perhaps update their idea of basketball in 2020 a little bit. Now, of course, there's a chance Oladipo just really wants to be in Indiana. I mean, we don't know that just yet, and it's just going to depend on the behind-the-scenes stuff that we don't know about right now. Like, if things went south, this could become like a Porzingis situation. Even then, we don't know the fine details of that like that, but the idea of the relationship gets to a point where it's like, well, this isn't going to go well, or, maybe like a Kawhi situation, if you will, So hopefully Indiana's got people in place, coaches, front office, all that stuff. I mean, they seem like a pretty well-run professional organization, and I think they do a good job of acknowledging that they're not really like a free agent destination, so they make the smaller moves, TJ Warren, for example, that type of stuff, or, the Sabonis-Oladipo trade. That in itself was a smart move by a team that realized their situation, and so I would trust that people who are smart enough to be that self-aware would understand how to go about this situation, but depending on the personalities involved, this could fall off a cliff really quickly, and Oladipo's just like, all right, screw this, like, you guys aren't going to give me my money, you're not even going to, you guys don't view me as the future of this team, so I'm out of here. I guess it's also a possibility that this just rides out all the way to free agency. I mean, typically we see the star player traded before then at this point, but I guess it's possible. I mean, maybe the relationship is never that bad, and the Pacers just kind of keep waiting to see if he's good, and it never really happens, and then they're like, well, I guess we'll let him walk, or maybe a sign and trade would happen, or that sort of thing. I don't know. But I do still believe that there would be offers for him, certainly. And the thing is, like, his market might not be that crazy. I mean, it would all depend on, would Indiana do what they can to drive the price up for him? Would another team just be all in on Oladipo, and that would cause other teams to have to pay more? I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities here. Another possibility is that Oladipo plays in some sort of a postseason, if we have one this year, and he's awesome. And the Pacers look really good, and then from there, Indiana's fine with keeping him. Now, if we're going to be looking at a potential playoff, I mean, all this is up in the air too, but if we just went right into the playoffs, the Pacers would play Miami in round one. Do they win that series? I feel like Oladipo would kind of be the swing player in that whole thing. I mean, unless Brogdon just went crazy, him or Sabonis, I don't know. If there's a world in which we've got a few more regular season games, then perhaps they end up playing the Celtics in round one, or there's even a world in which the Pacers could move up to 4, or Philly could move up to 4, and then they would play each other, because it's a big mess right in the middle of the Eastern Conference playoffs, so that could affect it all too. Maybe Oladipo just has an awesome couple rounds in a postseason if we've got one, and then this whole thing becomes a little bit easier. Now, even with that being said, I do think if Oladipo is extended for probably a max contract, then it It would be interesting to see what Indiana's next move is. I mean, they might just be like, this is our team and let's just see how good it is and we'll go from there. That's probably what they would do, but that would also be their team, and it wouldn't be a cheap one. Although I don't think it would be super over the luxury tax either. But all that depends, of course, on what the hell the salary cap's actually going to be once we're eventually out of this whole thing. So, that's it. But this is actual basketball stuff, you know? The Pacers could be looking different, could look the same.